Your existence is molded by the choices you make. Some are minor, like what to consume, what to dress in, or which path to take home. Others are more significant, such as where to work, who to rely on, and when to take chances. Then there are the high-stakes choices, the ones where time is scarce. Stress clouds your judgment, and there's no obvious right answer. Yet, making the wrong choice could cost you financially, damage relationships, harm your reputation, or even jeopardize your future. Pressure doesn't wait for you to be prepared. It arrives swiftly, unexpectedly, and sometimes unfairly. If you're not ready, you might freeze, react emotionally, or make a choice you'll regret. What distinguishes those who crumble under stress from those who thrive is not intelligence or talent, but training. Decision-making under pressure isn't about knowing the right answer, it's about knowing how to think. It's about creating mental space when there seems to be none, controlling emotions when they threaten to take over, and making the best possible move even when the situation is against you. Observe the individuals who succeed under pressure. Leaders, athletes, entrepreneurs, military strategists. They're not just lucky, they follow principles, systems, and strategies that allow them to act with clarity amid chaos. Under pressure, weak minds collapse while strong minds slow down the pace. They see what others miss and remain calm while others panic. This isn't a gift. It's a skill that can be learned. Let's discuss making decisions when the pressure is on. Pressure affects people in strange ways. It makes some hesitate, others rush, and most second-guess themselves at the worst possible time. Notice how some people thrive in high-stakes situations while others fall apart. The difference isn't intelligence or experience, it's training. Decision-making under pressure isn't about knowing the perfect answer. It's about knowing how to think when the moment is moving too fast for clear answers. Most people don't prepare for pressure. They wait until it hits and then hope for the best. They tell themselves they'll know what to do when the time comes, but when the time comes, they freeze because pressure doesn't give you extra time to think, it speeds everything up. If you're not already prepared, you'll either react emotionally, make the safe move out of fear, or do nothing at all. So, how do you make the right decision when the pressure is real? How do you ensure you're the one who stays clear while everyone else loses their composure? First, you slow down the pace. Create mental space because pressure forces people into a rush. It makes them feel like they have to act immediately, but acting fast and acting smart are two different things. If you let pressure convince you that speed is your priority, you will make a mistake. Notice how the best athletes, leaders, and performers always seem to have more time than everyone else. It's not because they're slower, it's because they don't panic. They create space between stimulus and response, and in that space, they see what others miss. When you feel pressure, your instinct will tell you to act fast. Fight that instinct. Instead, breathe. Literally take a deep breath. In that moment, you're regaining control over your mind, stopping yourself from reacting emotionally. That small pause is often the difference between a clear decision and a reckless one. Slowing down is one part of it. The next part is shifting your focus from how you feel to what you know. Pressure creates emotion, and emotion is the enemy of clear thinking. Under pressure, your body reacts like it's in danger. Your heart beats faster, your breathing gets shallow, and your vision narrows. You stop seeing the big picture and start obsessing over the immediate problem. That's why people under stress make irrational decisions. They're not thinking anymore, they're just feeling. Feelings don't care about logic. So, when you feel the pressure rising, shift your focus. Stop asking, how do I feel about this? And start asking, what do I know for sure? Because when you focus on what you know, you take back control from your emotions. You stop reacting and start deciding. Think of it like this. Pressure wants to speed you up and pull you into your emotions. Your job is to do the opposite. Slow down, think logically, and create space between what's happening and how you respond. If you don't control that space, something else will: fear, stress, panic, ego, and none of those things will make the decision you actually want to make. That's why preparation matters. People think high-pressure decision-making is all about what you do in the moment, but in reality, your decision is only as good as the preparation you did before the moment came. Think of a fighter stepping into the ring. They don't have time to plan during the fight. They're acting on instinct, but what kind of instincts do they have? Only the ones they trained. The same goes for you. If you haven't trained yourself to handle pressure, you will default to emotion, and emotion makes bad decisions. So, how do you train for pressure? You prepare before the moment comes. You create strategies ahead of time so that when the pressure's on, you already know what to do. Under stress, the last thing you want to do is think from scratch. Notice how top performers have routines. It's not because they need structure. It's because routine takes thinking out of the equation. They don't have to decide how to start their day, how to warm up, or how to prepare. They already know. So when pressure comes, they don't have to think, they just execute. That's how you win under pressure. You create structure, build habits that take emotion out of the equation, and then prepare so that when the moment arrives, you're not figuring it out, you're following a plan. The worst time to make a plan is when you're already in the middle of the fight. Next, let's talk about the role of emotion in high-pressure decisions. Pressure doesn't just test your logic, it tests your emotions. If you don't control your emotions will control you. Have you ever seen someone make a completely irrational decision in a stressful situation? Maybe they lashed out at the wrong person, gave up too soon, or doubled down on a mistake instead of correcting it. You're watching it unfold, thinking, why would they do that? The answer is simple. They weren't thinking, they were feeling. Under pressure, your emotions will try to take over. Fear, frustration, excitement, anger, whatever you feel in the moment will try to make the decision for you. If you let that happen, you'll end up making a choice that satisfies the emotion instead of solving the problem. If you want to make better decisions under pressure, you need to separate emotions from logic. That doesn't mean ignoring your emotions. It means recognizing them without letting them dictate your actions. That's how people destroy opportunities, lose relationships, deals, and momentum, not because they didn't know the right move, but because they let emotions push them into the wrong one. Here's the problem. Most people don't even realize when their emotions are making their decisions for them. They feel a sense of urgency, so they rush. They feel offended, so they lash out. They feel doubt, so they hesitate. They think they're being logical, but they're really just following the strongest emotion in the moment. That's why awareness is key. Before you make any major decision under pressure, you need to ask yourself, am I making this choice because it's the right one? Or because it feels good right now? Because sometimes the right choice doesn't feel good. Sometimes the right choice is walking away when you want to fight, pushing forward when you feel like quitting, or saying no to an opportunity that looks good but isn't right for you. If you let emotions make the decision, you'll choose relief over progress, comfort over growth, and what makes you feel better in the moment instead of what moves you forward in the long run. That's why discipline matters. Discipline is what separates people who can handle pressure from those who collapse under it. Pressure doesn't create weakness, it reveals it. When you see someone make a terrible decision in a high-stakes moment, you're not seeing a one-time mistake, you're seeing the result of years of untrained emotions. So, how do you train yourself to keep emotions from hijacking your decisions? You start before the pressure hits. Once you're in the heat of the moment, it's already too late. Here's a principle to remember. You don't rise to the occasion. You fall to the level of your training. That means whatever habits you've built when you're calm, those are the habits that will show up when you're under stress. If you've trained yourself to pause before reacting, you'll pause under pressure. If you've trained yourself to step back and analyze a situation before making a move, you'll do that under pressure. But if you've trained yourself to react emotionally, to let fear or frustration or ego dictate your choices, that's exactly what you'll do when the moment is critical. So let's talk about training. If you want to make better decisions under pressure, you need to start training your mind right now. First, you need to build delayed response time into your thinking. What does that mean? It means that before you react to anything, you give yourself a window to think. It doesn't have to be long. It could be as simple as taking a deep breath, counting to 5 in your head, or repeating a phrase that keeps you centered. Something like, and pause, think, decide. That tiny moment of hesitation, that's where discipline lives. Most people don't make bad decisions because they don't know any better. They make bad decisions because they don't take the time to apply what they know. So if you can build even a 1-second gap between feeling an emotion and acting on it, you give your brain the chance to step in. The second thing you need to train is your ability to detach from the moment. When you're inside the pressure, everything feels urgent. But if you can take a mental step back, you can see the situation for what it really is. Think about it. If you were advising someone else in your exact situation, what would you tell them to do? That's detachment, the ability to remove yourself from the chaos and see the decision from a logical point of view. That ability keeps emotions from running the show. So if you want to start making better decisions under pressure, you start practicing now. Build the habit of pausing before reacting. Train yourself to step back and see the bigger picture. And most importantly, stop making decisions based on temporary emotions. Because emotions change, but the consequences of your decisions, those stick around. Discipline under pressure is a skill, and if you train it, you will be the one who stays in control while everyone else falls apart. Okay, let's talk about how you can think clearly when the stakes are high. Pressure distorts reality. It speeds things up, makes small problems feel huge, and makes you second-guess yourself, doubt what you know. and sometimes even abandon logic altogether. Once your mind starts spiraling, clarity is the first thing to go. But here's the truth. Your ability to think clearly under pressure has nothing to do with intelligence. It has everything to do with control. When you lose control of your mind, you lose control of your choices. And when you lose control of your choices, you lose control of the outcome. So, if you want to make the right decisions in high-pressure situations, you don't need more intelligence, you need a strategy. A way to strip away the noise, separate fact from feeling, and force yourself into a state of clarity when everything around you is chaotic. Because here's the real danger. When people lose clarity, they don't just hesitate, they react emotionally, jump to conclusions, and make impulsive moves based on fear, frustration, or insecurity. Those mistakes can cost them everything. Have you ever seen someone lose their temper and say something they can't take back? Or panic and make a decision that backfired instantly? That's what happens when pressure takes over. The mind shuts down, emotion takes control, and regret follows right behind. But it doesn't have to be that way. If you know how to clear your mind under pressure, you can slow things down while everyone else is speeding up. You can see angles that others are too frantic to notice, and you can move with confidence while the rest of the world is losing its head. So, how do you do that? How do you stay clear when the moment is anything but calm? First, you need to understand one thing: your brain is working against you. Not because it wants to, but because when stress kicks in, your brain's first job isn't to make smart decisions, it's to protect you. That means it's going to default to the fastest, easiest, and most familiar solution it can find. That's why people under stress make predictable mistakes. They rush decisions because waiting feels dangerous. They avoid risk because failure feels catastrophic. They listen to fear instead of logic because survival feels like the priority. The problem is, most of the time, you're not in actual danger, but your brain doesn't know that. It treats emotional stress the same way it treats physical threats. Unless you take control, it will push you into decisions that feel safe instead of decisions that are right. So, the first step to clear thinking under pressure is to override your instincts. Recognize that just because something feels urgent doesn't mean it actually is. Just because something feels overwhelming doesn't mean it's impossible. Just because something feels like a catastrophe doesn't mean it's the end of the world. Because that's what pressure does, it magnifies everything. But if you can strip away the exaggeration, if you can separate what's real from what's emotional, you put yourself back in control. The second key to thinking clearly under pressure is to reduce the complexity. When pressure kicks in, the mind starts racing. It tries to consider every possible scenario, every possible consequence, every possible angle all at once. That's when overthinking kills action. Have you ever heard someone say they're paralyzed by indecision? That's not an accident. That's exactly what happens when your brain is overloaded. Instead of making a choice, it loops endlessly between options, trying to predict every outcome. But here's the truth. You will never have perfect information. You will never know exactly what's going to happen, and if you wait until you do, you'll never act at all. So, what's the fix? Simplify. Reduce the decision down to its core elements. What actually matters here? What are the top 2 or 3 factors that should be guiding this decision, and what's just noise? Because most of what your brain fixates on under stress is just noise, irrelevant details, hypothetical disasters that probably won't happen, 100% what ifs that will only slow you down. But if you strip it all away and focus on what actually matters, the decision gets clearer, the stress drops, and the right move starts to stand out. The third and final key to thinking clearly under pressure is to trust yourself. Because even if you do everything right, slow things down, strip away emotions, simplify the choice, you will still have doubt. That's what pressure does. It makes you question yourself. But here's the thing. If you've done the work, if you've thought it through, if you've prepared for moments like this, you already know what to do. The only thing left is to execute. And that's where most people fail, not because they don't know what to do, but because they don't trust themselves enough to do it. They hesitate, they delay, they look for more reassurance, more validation, more certainty. And by the time they finally act, the moment has passed. So when you reach the point where you've stripped away emotion, simplified the choice, and done the thinking, move, pull the trigger, make the call, take the action. Because the longer you wait, the more doubt will creep in, and hesitation under pressure is just another way of losing. Clear thinking under pressure isn't about perfection. It's about control over your mind, control over your emotions, control over your decisions. And the more you train it, the sharper you become. While most people let pressure cloud their judgment, you will be the one who sees everything clearly. Next, let's talk about building mental toughness for high-stakes decisions. Pressure isn't just about the situation, it's about how you handle it. 2 people can be in the same high-stakes moment. facing the same uncertainty, the same risks, the same consequences. One will fold, the other will rise. Why? It's not luck, it's not intelligence. It's mental toughness. Because pressure doesn't create weakness, it exposes it. The people who make the best decisions under pressure are not the ones who are naturally gifted. They are the ones who are prepared, the ones who have built the kind of mental toughness that allows them to keep moving forward while others break down. So the real question is, how do you build that level of toughness? The first thing you have to understand is that mental toughness is not about being fearless. It's not about being immune to pressure. It's about knowing how to function in the middle of it. People who are mentally tough don't lack fear. They've just trained themselves to act despite it. Because here's the reality. Fear isn't the problem, it's hesitation, it's panic, letting fear control the decision instead of using it as fuel. That's the real issue. Every person who has ever made a tough decision under pressure has felt fear. The difference is what they do with it. The weak let it shut them down, the strong feel it and move forward anyway. That's mental toughness. And it's not something you're born with, it's something you build. So, how do you build it? First, you need to condition yourself to handle discomfort, because pressure is uncomfortable. And if you've spent your whole life avoiding discomfort, you'll never be able to handle it when it matters most. People make decisions based on what feels easiest in the moment. They avoid confrontation, back away from risks, and take the path of least resistance. In doing so, they train themselves to be weak. You cannot expect to be strong in high-pressure moments if you've spent your entire life running from discomfort. You have to train for it. And the way you train is simple. Put yourself in difficult situations on purpose. Have the hard conversation instead of avoiding it. Take on challenges that stretch you. Push through physical discomfort. Train yourself to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Because the more you expose yourself to controlled stress, the less overwhelming real stress becomes. The more times you face difficulty and survive, the more your brain learns, and I can handle this. Second, you need to build your ability to detach. When emotions run high, mental toughness is the ability to step outside of them and make a decision based on logic, not feeling. Think about a great military leader, a top athlete, or an elite business mind. When the pressure is at its peak, do they get flustered? Do they start second-guessing themselves? Not a chance. They step back, assess the situation, remove the noise, and then they act. That's detachment, the ability to pull yourself out of the storm instead of getting lost in it. And it's something you can practice. Next time you feel stress rising, don't just react. Pause, step back, and ask yourself, if I were advising someone else in this exact situation, what would I tell them to do? That one shift in perspective can change everything. Because when you're in the middle of pressure, things feel chaotic. But when you take a step back, clarity returns. The third piece of mental toughness is trusting your preparation. Because when the moment is critical, you will default to your training. Have you ever noticed how top performers don't hesitate when it's time to execute? It's not because they have some magical ability, it's because they've put in the work. They don't need to overthink it because they've trained for this moment 1,000 times before. The problem is, most people don't train. They just assume they'll figure it out when the time comes. But when the time comes, they panic. That's why preparation is key. If you want to make the right decision under pressure, don't wait for the moment to arrive. Start training now. Train yourself to stay calm in difficult situations. Push forward when you feel fear and be comfortable in high-stress environments. So that when the pressure is on, you're not figuring it out for the first time. You're just doing what you've already practiced. Because the worst time to prepare for pressure is when you're already in it. The work has to be done before the moment comes. Mental toughness is a choice. It's a habit. And if you build it, pressure will never control you again. One of the most important things you must learn to do is execute under pressure, turning decisions into action. At the end of the day, none of this matters if you don't execute. You can have the best strategies, the clearest thinking, and be calm under pressure. But if you can't pull the trigger when it counts, none of it means a thing. Because making a decision is one thing, acting on it is another. And when the moment arrives, when the clock is ticking and there's no more time to analyze, you either move or you freeze. That's what separates the people who win under pressure from the people who fold. They don't just decide, they execute. But here's where most people go wrong. They get caught in hesitation. They second-guess themselves, wait for perfect conditions, and in that hesitation, they miss the window of opportunity. That hesitation, it's just fear disguised as logic. It's your brain looking for a way out, a way to delay action so you don't have to face the uncertainty of what happens next. And if you let it take control, you'll stall, you'll overthink, and the moment will pass before you've even moved. So, if you want to execute under pressure, you need to train yourself to cut hesitation out of the equation. First, you need to understand this: you will never feel 100% ready. If you wait for complete certainty before making a move, you will never act. Because pressure creates doubt. The more you think, the more possibilities you see. The more possibilities you see, the harder it is to commit to one. That's why high performers trust their preparation. When the moment comes, they don't waste time questioning themselves. They've already done the thinking. They've already made the decision. And when it's time to execute, they go, no hesitation, no overanalysis, just action. If you want to be the kind of person who moves under pressure, you need to train for action. One of the best ways to do this is to make micro decisions faster. Because how you do small things is how you do big things. If you struggle to make simple decisions in your day-to-day life, how do you expect to make massive decisions under pressure? If you spend 10 minutes debating what to eat, how do you expect to trust yourself in the moments that actually matter? Start training yourself to commit faster. Make a choice and move. Stop second-guessing small things. Stop overthinking things that don't require overthinking. Because the better you get at making decisions quickly, the easier it becomes when the stakes are high. The second way to train execution is to lower the cost of mistakes in your mind. Most hesitation comes from the fear of getting it wrong. But the truth is, most mistakes are recoverable. People hesitate because they treat every decision like life or death. But in reality, most of the time, if you make the wrong move, you can correct it. You can adjust, you can pivot. The people who execute under pressure don't avoid mistakes. They trust themselves to fix them if they happen. That's why they move faster. That's why they hesitate less, because they know that inaction is usually a bigger mistake than making the wrong move. And here's the thing: momentum beats perfection. A half-right decision executed at full speed is often better than a perfect decision that comes too late, because action creates clarity. Once you move, you start gathering real feedback. You start seeing the results of your decision in real time, and that gives you the ability to adjust, refine, and keep moving forward. But if you sit still waiting for absolute certainty, you get nothing. You learn nothing. You gain nothing. So the third key to executing under pressure is to trust the process. The people who succeed in high-pressure situations don't necessarily have more courage. They just trust the process of execution more than they trust their fear. They know that once they move, things will become clearer. They know that once they take action, their confidence will rise. They know that even if they're wrong, they can course correct along the way. That's what allows them to pull the trigger when everyone else is still stuck thinking. So, if you want to train yourself to execute under pressure, you start moving even when you don't feel ready, even when your brain is telling you to wait. Even when the fear of making a mistake is screaming at you to hold back. Because the longer you wait, the harder it gets. But the second you move, everything starts falling into place. When you step up in a high-pressure moment, you have two choices: act or freeze, decide or delay, win or lose. And the people who win, they don't hesitate, they don't wait for perfect conditions, they trust the decision and they execute. Because pressure rewards action. Everything we've talked about comes down to one thing: control. Control over your emotions, control over your thinking, control over your actions. Because when pressure is high, when time is short, when the stakes are real, you either take control or the situation takes control of you. And most people, they don't take control. They react, they hesitate, they get caught up in the moment, and they let fear, stress, and doubt make their choices for them. But that's not going to be you, because now you know what it takes to make the right decisions under pressure. You know how to slow the game down so that you don't get caught in the rush. You know how to separate emotion from logic so that your choices aren't driven by fear or frustration. You know how to simplify the decision so that you don't get stuck overthinking. And most importantly, you know how to execute. Because at the end of the day, all the strategy in the world means nothing if you don't move when the moment demands it. So, what does all of this mean for you? It means that pressure is no longer a problem, it's an opportunity. Because every high-pressure moment is a test, and now you have the tools to pass that test every single time. No more hesitation, no more second-guessing, no more letting pressure get the best of you. You're in control, and the next time you're faced with a decision that matters, you'll be ready.